What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction and breakdown for the co-main event of this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Nascimento. I'll be briefly going over some of my quick picks for the full card, but for certain fight nights like this, instead of doing a full card prediction and breakdown, sometimes I like to just single in on a particular fight that I'm most interested in. And this weekend, it's going to be the co-main event, and particularly why Nursultan Ruziboev is my favorite underdog on this card from a betting perspective. But without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the video. Before we jump into the predictions, go ahead and leave a like on the video. It helps me out a lot. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I post UFC content, UFC predictions. So if you enjoy the UFC or MMA in general, I'll definitely be releasing content for you. And if you're a fan of any of the fighters on this card, Buckley, Ruziboev, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below, letting me know your take on the fight as well, or any of the fights on this card that you're looking forward to. So as I'm looking at this weekend's card, Lewis versus Nascimento, it's a great fight night overall, a lot of good names and a lot of talent on the card. I think we're going to be in for some really good bouts. And just taking a look at the board here, I think there are going to be some pretty good underdog picks on this card. None of them are locks by any means, but just going through the card now, Veronica Hardy versus JJ Aldrich. I think Hardy gets it done, but Aldrich is definitely a solid underdog at about plus 110. I think Kevin Gisette gets it done pretty comfortably against Jared Gordon here. A lot better kickboxing and a lot more technical. Jared Gooden was on a pretty bad losing streak before getting the finish over Wellington Turman in his last fight. And Wellington Turman, he's more of a grappler anyway, so I think the favorite wins there, Kevin Gisette, about minus 225. So I think as a favorite there, he wins. Charles Johnson, pretty good dog in this fight here at flyweight versus Jake Hadley, but I do think that Jake Hadley will get the job done. I think he is a little bit more well-rounded, and he's not as green as the last opponent that Charles Johnson fought. I forgot his name, but he's a Kazakhstani, and he was a pretty heavy favorite in that matchup as well. I do think that Trey Waters will win his fight against Billy Joff, minus 165 there as well. Terrence McKinney and Chase Hooper are both underdogs in their fight as well. I think that other than Ruziboev and maybe Waldo Cortez Acosta, those would be two good underdog picks as well. Just in terms of a prediction standpoint, I do favor Terrence McKinney and Chase Hooper getting it done this weekend as well. Rubeles de Spain versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Honestly, just from a betting perspective, not in terms of a prediction, I think that Cortez Acosta, he's becoming a even heavier underdog as well because money has been coming in on Rubeles, but Rubeles de Spain has finished everybody he's fought in like the first 20 seconds. So you do have to question how he's going to look if he continues on into the second and third round. Maybe he doesn't look that great later on in the fight, and I'm really not too confident in his hands because he looks a little bit sloppy on the feet. Of course, he's super powerful and fast compared to a lot of the fat, plotty heavyweights, but Waldo Cortez Acosta, he does have a background in boxing, and his hands are a lot better than a lot of these fat heavyweights. And if he doesn't get KO'd stiff really fast by Rubeles de Spain, I could see him pulling it off here by decision or late TKO, but I'm not super confident in that whatsoever. Realistically, Rubeles probably will chin him, but if he doesn't and it goes into the second and third round, I do think that Waldo Cortez Acosta can definitely get it done the later the fight goes. Sean Woodson, a confident pick. Rubeski, a confident pick. Carlos Ulberg, a confident pick. I think that most of those heavy favorites on the main card are going to win. And I also think that Derek Lewis is going to KO Rodrigo Nascimento stiff. But like I said in the beginning of the video, I am going to be dialing in on this co-main event because out of this whole slate on the whole card, the underdog that I like the most, just in terms of a confident pick, I do think that Nursultan Ruziboev will get the job done over Joaquin Buckley this weekend in the co-main event. So yeah, those are the quick picks for the card, but I'm really looking forward to this. Mateusz Rebecki, he's an absolute beast. He's like the lightweight Volkanovski. Obviously not quite as high level, but a very similar style, and he's very, very good. Sean Woodson, I think he's going to just box the brakes off of Alex Caceres. And Rubeles de Spain, very good heavyweight prospect. Looking forward to that. So overall, very good card. You know, Chase Hooper, Terrence McKinney, lots of good fights on this card. I'm really looking forward to it. But the co-main event, Buckley versus Ruziboev, is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. I think that it has the potential to be a very entertaining fight, and I do think that we're going to see a finish here in this fight. I think that one of them is going to go to sleep for sure. So this fight definitely has finishing potential. And, you know, Buckley, he's like becoming a fan favorite. He's really funny on Instagram, and we all remember his call out to be able to get the main event at the UFC 300 press conference. Unfortunately, Dana didn't give him the main, but at least he's still on the card here in the co-main event spot. Breaking down this fight, the betting odds don't really surprise me. Buckley, of course, is the more experienced guy. He's been in the UFC a lot longer, and he is coming off of a win against Vicente Luque. Ruziboev, on the other hand, has only had 2 fights in the UFC, still unproven for the most part. But he opened at about plus 120 and then got up to about plus 135. And I bet him at those odds at plus 135. And now it's gotten a little bit worse. Money has been coming in on him as an underdog, rightfully so, because I do think he has a very high potential to finish Buckley here in this fight. Now he's about plus 105, plus 115, depending on where you're looking. But at the odds of plus 135, I do think that Ruziboev is a solid pick here, because by no means is he a lock. He could definitely lose. I worry about his gas tank. He has a lot of early finishes in his career, so if he goes past the first round and the second round, I could see him losing a decision here, because Buckley, he has better cardio, and I think he can just land more volume on Ruziboev, and he's just used to going the distance more than Ruziboev. And out of Ruziboev's losses in his career, I believe that most of them are by decision. I'm about to find that out right now. So he's 34-8. And out of his losses, 6 of them do come by decision. So I do think that if this fight does extend, it could favor Buckley, but I trust in Nursultan's grappling, because he does have a lot of submission victories on his resume. Of course, it's not against high-level competition whatsoever. A lot of these promotions, you know, in the Middle East, in the, you know, Eastern Europe type of area, they don't always have the best level of competition, so you have to always take that with a grain of salt. But Ruziboev, he's well-rounded, he has KO power, he has a submission threat, and he also has a crazy frame, dropping down to the welterweight division from middleweight, but he has fought at welterweight before, so it's not like the cut is going to be completely foreign to him. And with Buckley, his last win was over Vicente Luque, and just looking at that performance alone, I think that you may have been able to give Vicente Luque the first round just based off of his body kicks, but he looked really bad in that fight. He just looked super scared, like he was, you know, having PTSD flashbacks of the Jeff Neal fight. And as soon as he didn't complete that takedown, he basically just completely gave up. And Buckley wasn't landing really good ground and pound shots on him. He was basically just hitting the arms, and Vicente Luque just made no effort to kick at the hips to be able to get distance. He made no effort to, you know, grab Buckley to make sure that he didn't get any of the ground and pound shots off. Vicente Luque just completely quit. He just completely quit on himself, and I have to look at that as not a great win for Buckley, because he didn't really do anything to cause that finishing sequence. Vicente Luque just basically quit. And Nursultan Ruziboev, he's been looking good in his first 2 fights, just in terms of finishing potential. He didn't look super clean against Cedric Jamas, but, you know, he's not afraid to eye poke the opponent, so he's very competitive in that regard. You know, you think of a fighter like Jones, he'll do anything that it takes to win, including poking the opponent in the eyes. And I see that same type of tenacity from Nursultan Ruziboev, because if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Isn't that the saying? But I like his right uppercut. I think that since he has such a height advantage over Buckley, that uppercut will probably be there for him for sure. And, you know, the right hand down the pipe, he's knocked out a few people like that before. And Joaquin Buckley, we saw it in the Kevin Holland fight, he is open to that right hand down the pipe. And he also got finished in the exact same sequence, basically, that Nursultan finished Ferreira, catching the kick and firing a right hand down the pipe. It was a very similar sequence in the way that Chris Curtis finished Joaquin Buckley. Buckley went for a left kick, and Chris Curtis just caught him in between the time that he was throwing the kick and the time that he was rechambering it. He just didn't have time to get his base back, and Chris Curtis just put him out like that. And I could see something very similar happening here if Buckley isn't able to close the distance effectively. And if he does go for the grappling, like I said, I do trust the submission game of Ruziboev. I think the frame advantage is going to help him on the mat. I don't really see Buckley being able to just shoot and hold Ruziboev down without running into trouble. Of course, Ruziboev isn't really proven at a high level, like I mentioned, but these guys with the OV at the end of their name just seem to kind of have plot armor. And, you know, even if it doesn't make sense, sometimes it just seems that they are always able to get the job done. You think of a fighter like Bogdan Guskov, not very technical, but imposes his will. And even when he's completely outskilled by a guy like Ryan Spann, he's still able to get the job done. And I could see Ruziboev pulling off a finish similar to that. It just reminds me of that matchup because Buckley, you know, he has the better, cleaner boxing. He's more proven, but Ruziboev does have the finishing potential, the size advantage. And I think that with the hometown crowd, sometimes that can help you, but in a fight sport, a lot of the times that's a disadvantage because it puts all the pressure on your back. You're going to be worried about your hometown being disappointed in you. And I could see the stress of having to fight in your hometown in a co-main event kind of weighing on the shoulders of Buckley here. So I'm not necessarily sure that that is an advantage for him in this matchup. And Nursultan Ruziboev, I think he's just a hungry man. I saw a clip on Instagram of Buckley clowning Ruziboev and his team for not being able to pay the deposit for the fighter hotel that they were staying at. Buckley was, you know, clowning him and stuff like that.
Clear? Y'all clear? Yeah. Yeah, man, you know, they ain't had no money, y'all. Yeah, he gonna make some money though. Come Saturday, y'all. All right. My man coming from Uzbekistan, he gonna make some money Saturday, but unfortunately he gonna make half his money because he ain't gonna win. All right, he ain't gonna get no winning bonus, but he gonna get the 10K at least.
And I just see that Ruziboev, you know, he probably isn't very financially well off. You know, I feel like he's really trying to make his name in the UFC now. And Buckley, you know, he's kind of been a win one, lose one type of guy. Hasn't really been able to get a consistent streak going. So maybe he's a little bit content where he's at. I think that Nursultan Ruziboev is just going to come in here with a lot more tenacity because I just feel as if he's probably in a worse situation in life than Buckley is. And, you know, whenever a fighter is struggling financially, that just gives him that much more of a reason to go out there and get their full check, not just their show money. And Buckley, I did see a clip on his Instagram where he was showing off a lot of his training partners that he was training with in preparation for this fight. I believe he was in a boxing gym with a lot of taller opponents, guys that were above 6 foot, to be able to get used to that frame that Ruziboev is going to be presenting him. So I like that on the side of Joaquin Buckley, but I just feel like Ruziboev, you know, when he starts incorporating the grappling, if he starts throwing knees in the clinch, I feel like that could start to kind of break the boxing rhythm of Buckley here. And if he's unable to get his hands go, I feel like he may start panicking against Ruziboev here. And, if he's unable to close that distance, I could see him getting reckless and then Ruziboev just clipping him with something clean down the pipe. Like I said, it's not a lock whatsoever. Buckley is, of course, a lot more experienced in the UFC, and if it goes past the second round and Ruziboev starts to gas out, it could mean trouble for him. But, like I said, I'm trusting in his grappling. I feel like he could find himself in top position as well. If he tries to initiate the grappling against Buckley, I could see him having success there. But for my favorite underdog on this weekend's UFC Fight Night, give me Nursultan Ruziboev to win by submission in the second round here. I think he could drop Buckley with an uppercut and then latch up a Darce or a guillotine, something along those lines. So that's going to be my pick for the co-main event. I'm really looking forward to this fight because both of these guys are pretty interesting. You got the mysterious mountain man from Uzbekistan, Nursultan Ruziboev, who literally just looks like a tree. And then you got a fan favorite, really entertaining guy in Joaquin Buckley, who always brings it, throws big winging hooks, and always tries to make a fun fight. So I'm looking forward to this fight for sure. But at plus 135, I definitely think that Nursultan Ruziboev is worth a bet here. And I'm going to be taking him to win this fight in the co-main event this evening. And for Nursultan as well, I do like the fact that he is training in the salt mines with salty man Joe Pyfer and Sean Brady as well. So he's training with high-level training partners, and I feel like the mentality of those guys is pretty good for the most part. Even though they are salty, they are very driven individuals, and they are hustling to be able to get to the top of their divisions. So I like the fact that Ruziboev isn't training out of some random hodgepodge-ass gym. He is in there with real training partners at a real high-level facility. So I think that helps him out as well here in this matchup. Not, training with a bunch of random people who aren't really going to be able to test you in the gym. So for my official prediction for the co-main event here, I'm going to be picking Ruziboev to get it done by a second round submission. I think he can drop Buckley with a right uppercut, a right hand down the pipe. And then once he drops him, I think he can jump on a submission, maybe a Darce, maybe a rear naked choke. And I think he gets him out of there in the second round by submission. And also in the main event, I think that Derek Lewis is going to chin Rodrigo Nascimento pretty easily to get himself another knockout to add to his long list of KOs. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching all the way through. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like and subscribe. And as always, have a great rest of your day.